no matter where I go, I'm going to get the enrichment of being able to be immersed in another culture.
I'm Maria.
And I'm Renee, and you're listening to Adult Tea.
Welcome back, listeners, to this week's episode of Adult Tea. This week we have a special guest. Our special guest, would you like to introduce yourself? Hello, everyone. My name is Havyn with 20-something and Broke, which is my travel company that is helping people to take their first step with travel. So happy to be on this week's episode with you guys. And is there anything that you would like to say, Maria?
I'm just happy to have Havyn, honestly, because one, I travel, but I don't travel as much as I want to, and so I'm ready to hear these tips as to how I can get out here in this world and save my coins, though. So on a budget.
Before we go into our regular spiel, we want to get to know our guests a little more. So I'm 24 years old, an HBCU graduate, and I'm definitely a travel enthusiast. So travel is my passion. Anything travel I'm pretty much obsessed with. And I'm also a certified image consultant. Anything image and travel keeps me busy pretty much all the time. So I love to help people do what they love in terms of travel and do it affordably. So what inspired you to take on a career in traveling or being an image consultant? For traveling specifically, I think a lot of my inspiration is rooted from my childhood. I actually spent a lot of time traveling as a child, mostly nationally. By the time I was in high school, I got the opportunity to do an exchange program through France. And so that's when I first fell in love with Europe initially, but I didn't really have that much money, and I wasn't working in high school or on my own schedule, really. So by the time I hit college, I had a little bit of money and some time, and I booked my first trip to Italy, which is where I realized that travel was my passion, and it was something that I enjoyed doing, even in the wee hours of the night. So after I graduated and landed, the typical 9-to-5 dead-end job, I was bored with life after like the first year. And so after that, I quit and moved to Europe to start my career in travel. So ever since then, I've been, I pretty much go somewhere every month, and I just look forward to learning new cultures and creating new experiences in different places.
That's amazing, and you're so brave for that. Because
Thank
so
you.
many people, especially now, they want to know that they're stable, and so even if they're working a job that they absolutely hate and living a miserable life, they'll just deal with it, because hey, as long as I'm making ends meet and et cetera and et cetera. But for you to say, like, this is not the life that I want to live, and go out, and I'm guessing you didn't have family members when you went to Italy or when you decided to go out of the country and live, and that is so brave, and I just have to commend you for that. I just have to pause and commend you for that.
I think it's really just about taking the first step. When I moved to Spain, I didn't know the language, I didn't know anybody, but I don't know, I don't really fear the unknown so much, because I knew when I left that I would just come back with such a great learning experience either way it went. But, I am glad that it, took off and I was able to continue traveling post-Spain. To talk more about your business, as you say, your business name is 20-something and Broke. So would you like to describe in more detail on what you offer? And so 20-something and Broke initially started as just a blog to kind of follow my travels and how I was doing them affordably. And so recently, just this month, we'll be launching the custom packages for people, and then tell us where they want to go, and then we're able to customize their experience. If it's just the experience, we'll do that, or we'll do the whole thing. We'll find the flights, we'll find the lodging, and then if you were going for a relaxing experience, we'll customize it to that. Or if you're going for like a bucket list experience and you want to be skydiving or something, we'll plan that for you, just to kind of take off the hassle that comes with planning trips, and to kind of hold people accountable for, have always wanted to travel and then never doing it. We'll also hold you accountable for that as well. You talked about the bucket list travel package. So what does that, so is it their own personalized bucket list? It's like 100 things that they want to do. How does that happen? There'll be really only 4 packages. And so you'll be able to go online, select which kind of experience you're looking for. If you do have specific things on your bucket list, you're probably going to want to do them in the specific location that you've let us know that you wanted to go. And so if that's the case, then we'll match up specifically where you're able to do that in that country. Or if you kind of, bucket list can also just mean what is on other people's bucket list, which is typically things that are thrilling, death-defying activities. And so we'll set those up for you, find the most affordable one, and then send you back that itinerary to where when you get there, everything's kind of already set up for you, just making the experience that much more worth it. So we'll have the bucket list. You'll have one where you can become, culturally interactive in that specific location. The romance package if you're just going with as a couple. So there'll be a few different options there once those launch at the end of the month.
That's awesome. You know what? You said you're launching this month. I just may be a client, and I'm not playing because I'm playing in Mexico, but that's a different conversation. So just tell us a little bit more about your future goals in this travel industry.
In the travel industry specifically, again, I would like to now work more one-on-one with people and consult with them to kind of take that first step when it comes to travel. So right now, we're still kind of small, but I would like to eventually have more consultants that are able to work with people and eventually even travel with some of the people that may, be uncomfortable traveling solo or have just seen maybe some of our Snapchat stories and would like to travel with us internationally as well. So sooner or later, I would like to grow in that direction to just make it a community of affordable traveling.
That's kind of awesome, especially I like the aspect of you having someone travel with people that do not want to travel alone, and that's awesome. Do you ever get homesick? It seems like you're always somewhere in a new land. Do you ever get homesick? And if so, how do you deal with that? How do you cope?
So when I was in Spain, I got homesick pretty fast. Even when I went to Italy for like a week, I was ready to come back to the U.S. immediately. When I'm away longer, typically I'll just book another trip, to be honest, because for me, learning new things keeps me interested. So if I start missing home, especially when I'm in Europe, because it's so easy to travel to a new country and it's so affordable, I'll book a new trip or just book a new activity for the weekend that I can look forward to. And having something to look forward to makes the weeks go by faster. By the time you've done all that, it'll be time to go home. But for short-term travel, if you start to get homesick, I'll probably just, Google your hometown or Google your country, see all the stuff that's going on that the reason you left in the first place. And then you'll just find something else to do because sometimes there's a lot of stuff going on back at home and just realize that you're in a new culture, and there's so many things to learn there in a short amount of time that you'll be back in the chaos in no time.
So you said this started as a blog in college. Did you ever think for a second that it would go this far?
I definitely thought about it, but then sometimes I doubt myself in terms of how far or how successful the business can be, and that has kind of hindered me in a way. But from where it was, it's definitely come so far, and I'm definitely thankful and humble and just planning and working tirelessly to try and get it off the ground and to be able to help people along the way as well. And so that's what I'm most excited about, is to open these packages, to be able to get to know people personally, what they love, what they want to do, and then help them achieve that. I think that'll be one of the greatest rewards with moving forward with the business.
That's awesome. That's amazing. And so let's continue to talk a little bit more about the business and the startup of this business, because I know you probably experienced a lot of struggles, I'm sure, as with any startup. So what were some of your struggles with your business, and how did you overcome those struggles?
One of my personal struggles with the business, or just building a business specifically, is just wondering what other people will think when you start to release things, or like when I'm planning to launch these packages. And what's interesting is in my personal life, I'm the complete opposite. Like, I really could care less, and, you know, I say what I mean all the time. But when it comes to business, the business is there to help other people. And so when I'm drafting up things or blogging or answering questions, I get nervous and I retract sometimes, which is, again, what has hindered me in the past. But so far, just from the last few months, I've just learned to take that step, because the worst that can happen is, you know, somebody saying no or someone saying they don't like it. But the ratio of people that have responded to what I've put out has been really positive and encouraging. And a lot of people have been, you know, reaching out to try and collaborate with 20-something and broke lately. So I'm definitely just looking forward and taking every step I can.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Now, I'm going to go back a little bit because I've been following you. I've been following 20-something and broke. And I remember you did an interview, right, on the radio. Isn't that right? How was that for you? Especially since this was, again, kind of early in your growth. How was that experience for you?
Yeah, because I was in the early stages. It came naturally because a lot of things involved in travel are things that I know very well. It was just kind of easier questions that I was able to help people with. How do you travel affordably, and how do you save money? Or people were asking, do you even have a savings account? Like, when it comes to traveling so often, I don't. It's a good question, but I actually don't have a travel savings. You know, I'm always booking something left and right. Again, it's something that I love to do. I'm not in debt from it, but I don't, you know, have this big pot that I just pull from every month.
That's interesting. You said something about having a savings account for traveling specifically, because, like, I was talking to one of my coworkers, and her husband, he works for QS Bank, and he was talking about how no one comes in and asks for a loan for vacation. And I was just like, well, I didn't even know, you know, you can get a loan for vacation or anything like that, or if that was even possible. So there is something very interesting, because a lot of people don't think, oh, necessarily I'm going to save to go on a vacation, or I'll pull out a loan to go somewhere that I want to go.
Yeah, that's kind of weird. I don't think I would take out a loan for vacation, but, you know, to each their own.
There are a lot of companies now that are, you know, offering to where you can basically pay as you go, and where they'll reserve the price of the flight for you in advance. I know Airportable does that. So I think they're starting to come out with ways to cater to people that are not traveling specifically being because of money. So that's always a possibility. I did not know a loan was possible. And I probably wouldn't either, just with interest and all that. Yeah, they're coming around.
That's crazy. It's crazy because you get off your vacation, you have to pay this money back, like you said, plus interest. So it's like, really? Like, oh, that's so silly to me. It's so silly. But let's go ahead and move on, because I could literally ask you questions all day, because this is so interesting to me. And I like the idea of being able to travel all the time, but I'm not there yet. But anyway, Renee mentioned vacation, and a lot of people have this idea that you vacate from your life. But you're definitely living your life like it's golden, completely golden, because you don't need to vacate from your life. Like, this is your life.
Right.
So I just kind of wonder, again, going back to you being brave, because some people can be living a life that they're not so happy with, and not do anything about it, and then just take these little vacations from their life, which is kind of ridiculous. So how do you feel, or what are your thoughts on that idea of vacating from your life?
I think it's interesting because the topic always comes up about the difference between vacation and traveling, which there is a difference. And I look at traveling as more of immersing yourself as a culture. You're not just going somewhere and laying on the beach all day, or, you know, on this glamorous cruise. You're actually learning and taking something from whatever place you're going to. And so even for me, someone who is traveling all the time, so I am somewhere every month learning something new, but even now I'm heading to Cancun next weekend, but it's strictly like a vacation. I'm not going to be, I'll be doing fun things and still getting to know the culture, but for me, that's more of a destination to where I'm able to be on the beach or just swimming and not really worry too much about planning the next trip. So I still vacate from my life, but typically is a lot of different places.
Dang. What about you, Renee?
I'll have to agree with that because, I mean, I work your standard 9 to 5. Well, I wouldn't say your standard 9 to 5. I work as a school teacher, as many know. Often, I feel like, I need a break. I always need a break. Like, I'm pacing myself to the breaks that we get as teachers, and that's not always healthy, you know. And I also idolize other countries in that way because, like, some countries, they give their employees so much time off. They don't have to have the feeling, oh, I need a break from my job, or I need to have a vacation from my job. But it also makes me appreciate vacationing more. That's like right now, I'm on vacation from my job, and oh man, I'm just living my life right now. I'm detached my brain. I'm not, you know, I'm not doing everything that I have to do because I'm trying to get myself out of this routine, and I'm trying to just enjoy myself right now because I'm on break. And so it has its ups and downs. I do agree. You know, you don't want to live a life that you feel like you have to always vacation from because it can be unhealthy.
Definitely can be. I want to go back because you explained the difference between traveling and vacationing, and I just never heard of it. But now when you say it, it makes so much sense.
Right.
But I like to do both. I like to vacate. I like to travel. But let's talk about traveling because, like you said, when you travel, you're immersing yourself in someone else's culture. You're beginning to understand different, you know, people and where they come from and things, you know, their beliefs. Let's talk a little bit about just the importance of cultural competence, just understanding people that come from different cultures, and you've been so many places. How important is that when you go to those other countries?
I think it's extremely, extremely important, and I think it easily separates in terms of if you are traveling in a group, like the type of people you want to travel with, because for one, you have to have an open mind, especially if you're going to a country where you can't even speak the language, and the only way to understand the culture may be through music or through food or something you're unfamiliar with. And so those people that aren't able to do that and are stuck in their own culture of how they've been raised, it's like, you know, just stay at home. Those are the people that are vacationing all the time. But even when you switch it to America, cultural competence in terms of maybe like healthcare specifically, and you're trying to, you have different doctors from different cultures, which I also know a doctor who is not from here who will just kind of write off people that come in with mental illness or just give them the wrong medicine or not even look further into what's really necessary because it's not his cultural norm. So either way you put it, you know, it's very, very important to, when you're in a different place that you're not familiar with, to accept it for one, and then be open because you're most likely going to learn something new.
Right.
And that's what you're there for in the first place. So very, very important.
I agree. And I think another thing that people may fail to realize, you'll see how people come into America and maybe their English isn't as great and so it's a little broken. And everyone is joking and making fun of them like, oh, ha, it's so funny. But I've been in a country where I could not speak. I was in China and I can't speak Mandarin. I mean, I learned a little bit. That was so hard. And it's like, it makes you understand their frustration when you're back in America, because I'm from America. When I'm back here and I see people making fun of other people that may be speaking broken English, I get frustrated and I get upset because I know what they feel. I can relate to them in that sense. And I also think another thing, travelers, listeners out there, you're traveling or vacationing, you should understand that you can't go into someone else's country and say what they're doing is wrong. Like, oh, that's wrong and it's right. Because when I was in China, it's okay to do certain things like use the bathroom on the sidewalk. Babies can use the bathroom on the sidewalk. You can pull up their clothes and let them go. Someone will come and clean it up. But that's something that could never happen in America. Like, that would be an issue. But I'm not going to walk up to them or say, ooh, that is so wrong, or give you some kind of look of disapproval. Like, this is your country. These are your laws. And so I think that's one thing people need to keep in mind when you're going out of the United States or out of your home country. Yeah. What do you think, Renee?
I have to agree. But that's the beauty about, I think, our generation now, that because a lot more people are starting to travel, they're starting to they're starting to see other cultures. So right now, what we're in a pocket of our society is kind of like a backlash because we're so diverse now, and people aren't too used to it, and so, they make fun. They'll say things that they don't necessarily mean. But I believe in the long run, we'll get used to each other, and we'll start to understand more because people are more open to understand, or people are just more open to fight back for what is right. Does that make sense? Am I making sense? So, it does help. It does aid in things like, okay, I understand what they go through when they come into our country, or when they go into the grocery store and they need additional help because they don't know how to get from point A to point B. It helps you to appreciate them more and help to understand that at the end of the day, we're all human. No matter what continent we come from, city, country, place, it really doesn't matter. We're all still the same. And in itself, we all still have the same customs, and we all still have, like, what we do may seem extreme, may seem different at first, but the more we get to know each other, the more we start to realize our commonalities and start to better bond with each other.
I agree. And I think we can use some cultural competence training even here in America with citizens of America, but I won't go there.
Just continue on, talk about traveling. There was a ban imposed on America because there were specific countries that we don't allow them to travel over here without their visas. So they were like, okay, on the flip side, you cannot come over to our country without a visa. So what's your take on that, Havyn?
Blasphemy. I mean, I was mad, and even though, one of the countries is Croatia, which I plan on going to this year, and so some people that travel often don't understand how daunting sometimes the visa process is. These people do not work with you, and so now that I have to do that for, countries I just show up in with a passport before,
right,
it's horrible, but it's just so interesting because even traveling, not to get too political, but traveling during Obama, traveling during the campaign, and now traveling during Trump were three different experiences in just how we're perceived abroad. And so now before where people were embracing us and kind of loved Americans, they're now like, you guys are dumb, basically, and how could you let someone into office as such and all this. So the relationships are changing, and it's very, very easy to see. So I can only hope that other European countries do not join them, and that those relationships are, turn around for people that travel.
Right. And that's an interesting thing that you said, because I was listening to NPR a few weeks back, and they were talking about how New York City is preparing itself for travel plans into New York. But because of the current stigma that has been put on traveling to America by, our administration, that they're projected to, I think it's supposed to be less than half of what they normally expect for people to travel, because a lot of people, they come from Muslim-based countries that have been banned, or they come from Europe, and everyone in Europe is kind of like, well, because there are Europeans who are Muslim, there are Europeans who are African, that people live all over the world. And so that's very interesting that you said, because that's taken an effect on airplane companies in America. That's taken an effect on the travel agencies in America. So where do you feel that puts you in your pursuit for 20S&B?
Well, I think, I don't know how people are really reacting in terms of, if they're now more scared to kind of travel abroad, which definitely could affect the business, because that's the whole plan, is to get more people to travel. And a lot of people, it will be their first trip, their first international trip. So it'll be interesting to see how people react if they retract and kind of change to just maybe traveling nationally or just traveling to kind of typical destinations. But yeah, it'll have an effect on anybody that's in the travel industry. Even the fees that we pay per flight are expected to go up another $1.
Right.
And so, yeah, a lot of that is changing pretty fast.
I just feel like all of these restrictions shouldn't be put on travel. Like, the world is there for us to travel, but I understand politics and power and how that goes into play as far as traveling. I don't like it. Let's get to the part that I'm ready for. I'm trying to learn how to travel on a budget. It's going okay, but I have an expert here. We have an expert here. So, Havyn, please tell us, how can we travel inexpensively?
Well, the first rule I would say is to plan ahead. That's the number one rule when you're trying to travel affordably. For me, I have trips probably planned out as long as November, and even though that's a little bit long for me, typically I'll book my trips 3 to 5 weeks before I go. For people that may not travel as often or may not have as much flexibility, it's important that you take the time to figure out where you want to go, what you want to do, so you're able to start your budget at that time. So secondly, I would recommend being flexible, whether it's when you go or, how much you're able to spend or the place that you go. You need to be able to be flexible. Some people have specific destinations that they want to go. Maybe they're celebrating a big birthday or it's somebody's wedding, so you really don't have that flexibility in terms of the time and the place. But that is how I specifically travel affordably. I literally get on and search different cities and then look from where I'm flying out of, where's the cheapest, and that's just where I go next. I don't really have a preference because no matter where I go, I'm going to get the enrichment of being able to be immersed in another culture. Also, if you don't live near a place that has a big transportation hub like New York, Chicago, the West Coast, then find out how you can get there. Search your flight from those places because that's where they're going to be the cheapest. And then you can book your flight to that city, to New York or LA, closer to when your flight actually leaves, therefore giving you that time to save that money and break up the cost as opposed to paying for it all together, because they will get you on that end in terms of adding that extra cost, even though it may be cheaper to buy them individually. So those are a few things. Also, there's a lot of travel deals, travel glitches, simple pages. I typically use Google Flights, but any places like the Flight Deal, they'll put something up daily about deals that you're able to go on for the low. So I just purchased a ticket to Bangkok and Nairobi. Both together were under $500 round trip. So you have to catch them and make sure you sign up for those email alerts because that's how you get there cheap.
Right. You said Google Flight?
Google Flights is where I do all my searching, and then I'll buy the tickets specifically from the airline's website. I don't buy from like Priceline or Expedia. I buy directly from the website of the airline, but most of my searching is done through Google Flights. It's just basic.
That's so interesting because a lot of people say that they save money on Priceline when they buy it through Priceline. Are you saying because you're doing Google Flight, you're finding it cheaper from the airline?
Well, Google Flights gives me everything I need to search in terms of like the trends, because the trends of the prices will change based on what day you actually purchase your ticket. I don't do the third-party purchasers just because things could happen. Like even with the glitch deals, they're able to cancel your flight after you purchase it.
Can you please say that over for our listeners out there that's trying to travel?
Yeah, so when you get a travel deal and you book it through third-party sites, the airline can still cancel that flight to where Priceline is no longer able to honor the flight that you got for so low. And so to avoid that, I typically just, like I said, book directly through the airlines because they will, honor the flight that you purchased when it's directly through them.
Wow, that's crazy.
And just thinking about traveling inexpensively, what do you feel like is the best form of traveling? Because, like,
yeah,
I was talking to someone not too long ago, and they were like, oh, yeah, I had a bus ticket for $400. And I was like, well, I had a plane ticket cheaper than that. So what's your best form of transportation when it comes to traveling?
I think it's personal preference for me. I hate road trips, bus trips, train trips. So and most of the places I want to go are overseas. So for me, I definitely prefer flying on a plane. And even just on the plane, you'll get a different, cultural experience right off the bat. If you're flying a different airline other than an American airline, you'll get that experience as soon as you hop on the plane. Very luxurious just to be in economy for some of these airlines. So definitely flying is my way to travel of choice.
Awesome. I have to ask you, because you're in and out of airports all the time, just what are some must-haves that people need to take with them when they're expected to be in the airport for a while?
I typically travel with in my carry-on backpack, a change of clothes, my headphones, a passport, copy of your passport if you're flying internationally, compression socks so that my feet don't swell if I'm on the plane for a long time, and then a book. So, and a pillow, because some of the layovers are long, and if you don't have access to the lounges, some airports have lounges you can pay by the hour, but if you don't have access, then you have to get comfortable with just sleeping in public, which I've gotten very comfortable doing.
Oh my God. I don't think I'm there yet. I couldn't even sleep in class as a kid because I'm just so weird about people watching me.
Yeah.
But just for fun, I have to ask you, what's the craziest thing that's happened during one of your traveling trips?
I don't know if we can do this because I've traveled with Havyn on a few trips, and my best guess is it would include some trips that she has been on with myself. But I don't know.
Is that Cuba?
To speak on it.
Yeah.
Is that Cuba?
Cuba was a little too wild for me. They are still a little bit, back in time, but yeah, a lot of inappropriate nudity in public, scarred by Cuba, to be honest. But
because that's a little deep there. People just wilding out in the streets,
Yeah, I haven't accepted to even be able to write a blog on Cuba just yet, so it'll be coming soon. But yeah, that's definitely one of the craziest trips I've been on.
Awesome.
And what's been your best trip? Like, if you could relive it over, you would do it.
South Africa was my favorite, best trip. It was life-changing from the time I arrived in the airport. I went to Johannesburg and Cape Town, and even just driving, I was fortunate enough to be able to stay, in a hotel off the beach in Johannesburg, and just driving through the town and realizing that people actually, live like that, literally built their own homes, made of just cardboard and metal scraps, and that the government, lets it be just so they don't have to confront the real issues.
Right.
It just made me rethink a lot of things and humbled me a lot. But once I got to interact with the kids in the village and they performed for us, and it was so emotional, and if I could go back to South Africa, I would. And I'm happy to be able to go back to Africa this year to be able to, learn a little more about stomping grounds.
I'm actually looking to go to Africa. I haven't decided which part yet this summer. So I'm wondering, how did you book your trip? Because I know you got all the tips. So how was booking that trip for you?
Well, you probably just missed one of the biggest deals of the year when they,
Oh, wow.
I guess they're called
Don't tell
school
me.
jumping deals. But that's one of the trips, like I said, Nairobi, that I booked for $280 round trip from Washington, D.C. So that, I mean, you just have to be quick, too. That's one thing. When they come out, I mean, that was all over social media. So
Wow.
Africa is very, very expensive to travel to, I would say, but you definitely should look out of New York or D.C. because those have the best deals. So you can probably get there maybe for $700 to $800 round trip normally, but you don't know what part yet.
Right, I don't. I'm still deciding. I'm looking more towards like Tanzania or Cape Town.
Yeah, Tanzania is beautiful, but like once you're there, wherever the cheapest place is, I know South Africa wasn't bad. The flight from South Africa to other places in Southern Africa will be affordable. So wherever you go, you should be able to hit up multiple countries if you have time.
Oh, that's awesome. What's the best way to travel when you're in Africa?
I mean, if you're going to country, I would still say by plane. I don't know what, in terms of traveling by like bus, how that is in Africa. I know places, like even in, like if you were up north in Egypt, they do a lot of transportation like that by car. From if you're just within the country and want to do city to city, and the city's maybe a couple hours, then definitely something on land. But anything that's too expensive, just do it the other way. Do it the cheapest way. It'll probably be the best experience.
I have my notepad, so I'm taking notes right now because this is much needed. Renee, do you have anything to add?
All right. I just think this is awesome in general, and I often think about how the people before us, like, I always get confronted with black women or black men who are older than me, and be like, oh, you go and see these places, you go travel, it doesn't scare you, but I think it's a great thing because they come from a generation where if they did go to another country or just the thought of leaving out of America, it was scary because of the racial barriers that they have to deal with in America itself. And so the notion of going somewhere else and being mixed in with another culture, it may just be as prejudiced or even worse than it is in America. Have you ever experienced any type of prejudice or discrimination while visiting another country, or is that something that you don't even think about? Do you feel like people in other places are more open-minded about race?
I definitely think the majority of people in other countries are more open-minded than Americans. And so every time I go somewhere, someone will tell me, be safe. And I'm just like, well, you be safe because, to be honest, it's worse over here than it is there, even though I'm somewhere where I can't speak the language and don't know anyone. They're more accepting from what I've experienced now. When I was in Spain, they did have protests. I don't know if it was because of the advancement from people that was going on in Madrid at the time, but they did have a protest where we were warned not to travel during a specific time to the city center. So I know that it's over there. I know that they do have racism over there, but I've never personally experienced anything. If anything, they love black women a little too much, and so that's on a creepy level. But other than that, I have not experienced anything worse than what I've experienced here in America.
And I think that's something that our listeners should really take heed. Like what she's saying, don't be so blinded by what society tells us, because honestly, American society tells us, hey, it's not safe, don't go there, it won't be safe for you, but that's not true. So experience the world. Don't be so, paralyzed by fear of the unknown that you do not live, okay? This is life. Live it. Live it like it's golden, okay? So go out and experience the world.
But this week, we don't have listeners' tea, but I feel like we've covered so much within this one episode that, hey, if anybody has anything to say, make sure you shoot a question to us, stay connected. And so, are there any last words of advice to people who are traveling to other places? outside of America?
Well, for the people that would like to start traveling, besides just go and do it, do the research of where you want to go. If you don't want to do the research, pay someone to do it for you. Because at the end of the day, you have to make it happen.
Hint, hint, Havyn, 20-something
Right.
and broke.
I think people really need, with my experience, especially people that are open-minded and are just too scared to do it, you really just need one trip, one international trip. No matter which way it goes, it will change you forever. And I will promise you will look at things differently. And before you get back, you'll be wondering, where you're going to go to next. So, yeah, if you don't want the hassle of it, definitely come to 20-something and broke, and we'll get you there. To help anyone that, may be struggling to take that first leap, 20-something and broke is having a giveaway to where we will be paying for 2 people's passport application fees to be able to take that first step to travel internationally. So definitely check us out on Instagram at 20-something and broke, or on the website 20somethingandbroke.com.
Thank you, listeners, for listening again this week. I hope you enjoyed our guest host, Havyn, talking about her company, 20-something and broke. Get out there and travel, go see the world. Please don't forget to follow us on Instagram and Twitter at AdultT. Don't forget to like our page at facebook.com/TheAdultT. And please do not forget to send us listeners tea, because we're dry. The tea was out this week. What's going on, people? So please don't forget to send us listeners tea at bt@adultT.com. That's bt@adultT.com. Once again, I'm Renee.
Maria.
And thank you for listening.